Chapter 2: School and First Communion. Sometimes our neighbors will take us to see soccer games on Sunday mornings. This happened at a place called El Campo del Gas, that means the field of gas, located on the Paseo de las Acacias in Madrid. It was quite an event because, in addition to enjoying the atmosphere, they'd buy us a bag of chips and one of those sodas in glass bottles with lids, which tasted so good. Then we'd go home for lunch, always something special on Sundays like paella or something like that. Other times, my parents would take us to the Rastro flea market, famous in Madrid, a place where they sell everything and where you can spend the whole morning and still not see it all. Our friend Merche often accompanied us. We also went to a nearby park, Arganzuela, where my brother and I would run around, play ball, and hang from swings and other equipment until we dropped or until my mother called curfew. Regarding my schooling, I know I went to a public school called Colegio Legado Crespo, or Legado Crespo School, also located on Paseo de las Acacias. It was the closest public school to our house. Something we don't see anymore, but something we waited for every morning in the schoolyard during recess was the milk truck that brought a small bottle for each student to drink with our lunch. Every time the truck arrived, a commotion of children will form in the yard, crowding around the teachers to grab their small bottle of Klesa milk. Klesa was the brand of the milk. I used to play with all the girls my age in the playground, but to my shame, I admit there was one girl who, I don't know why, even at this point in my life, I couldn't stand. And as soon as I saw her appear at recess, boom, I go for her. I suppose there are two explanations. One, the well-worn kid stuff, and the other, that she was someone from another life whom I had a grudge against. Oh well, I guess only God knows. I remember how they came to school to test us for tuberculosis and administer the vaccine if we tested positive. We'd line up one by one to get our arms pricked, filled with fear of those needles and the pain we might feel. At least I do, since I hate syringes. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, I tested positive and received the vaccine, which hurt terribly. Once I wrote a poem in third grade because literature has always fascinated me immensely. That poem was titled The Nightingale, and I showed it to my teacher, who asked me if I had copied it from a book because it didn't seem very simple for a third grade girl. I swore to her that I had written it in a short while in class, and she began to research all the poetry books in school. After ruling out plagiarism on my part, she called my parents to ask if they had any poetry books at home, something by Rosalía de Castro or something similar. Rosalía de Castro was a famous poet in Spain. The answer was resounding: no. Of course we had books, but not poetry. My father read a lot of Dostoevsky and a German man, Sven Hassel, who wrote books about his experiences as a soldier in the Nazi army, but nothing about Rosalía de Castro and company. Well, so the devil wouldn't take the lie. We had the stories and legends of Gustavo Adolfo Becker and an edition of Wuthering Heights from the 1950s, which I wouldn't start reading until I was 11 years old. So, given what I saw, the teacher encouraged my parents to direct me to study philosophy and literature, or philology, at the university or something similar when I grew up. But unfortunately, my father didn't think my first literary steps were worth anything, and my teacher's visions of the university future dissipated in the mists of time. This hasn't stopped me from continuing to have a fondness and love for reading and literature that's hard to overcome. With sadness, I remember a classmate we called Olgita. Her name was Olga, a girl of weak appearance, but with much kindness in her eyes and soul, who unfortunately died of heart problems shortly after making her first communion with us. Our teacher broke the news to us when we returned to class one day and Olgita hadn't come. Very tactfully, they told us that our friend was in heaven because her heart had failed her. A sad chapter from that time at school. But thank God my mother keeps the photos of my first communion where I can remember her whenever I took a look at them. I hope she really is in heaven, or at least has been reincarnated as a wonderful person. Speaking of my communion, I took it at the Sacred Heart of Mary parish in Madrid, and it was a beautiful day, although my dream of dressing like a princess or a bride was cut short by my parents' sartorial tastes. They decided to dress me as a nun, arguing that it was simpler, prettier, less ostentatious. It's a trauma I'll always carry with me, especially because only one other girl and I were the only ones dressed in those shams among I don't know how many others stuffed with organdy and lace. To make matters worse, the day before I had lost one of my front teeth, and I didn't know what to do to avoid showing my smile to the photographers. So if you ever see my communion photos and realize that in almost every one of them, my mouth remains set in a rictus like Da Vinci's Mona Lisa, don't hold it against me. I was just an embarrassing act from an 8 or 9-year-old girl. By the way, that dress was taken to a dressmaker after communion and turned into a mid-season coat, as they said back then. It was sort of a light jacket for when the chilly weather started, and which I later wore to my brother's communion. Well, I suppose that garment was designed for just those occasions after all. End of chapter 2.